At the beginning of the story, we see a prison named the Shawshank Redemption. This is the most secure prison in the world. There are thousands of prisoners in this jail. But to this day, no prisoner has ever escaped from this prison because the security here is extremely strict. There are also prisoners in this jail who have spent their entire lives here. But they never even had the thought of escaping from this prison because the punishment for a prisoner who tries to escape is straight up death. Now the scene cuts here and we are shown a man named Andy in court, who is a banker at a very big bank in America. The judge sentences him to life imprisonment for the murder of his wife and her lover. But Andy says that he did not commit these murders. However, Andy had no proof to prove himself innocent. Because of this, the court's judge sends Andy to the world's most secure prison, the Shawshank Redemption, for life imprisonment. There are many other prisoners along with Andy, and when these prisoners are brought inside the jail, the other inmates already inside make bets among themselves about which one of the new prisoners will cry tonight. And for this, they bet a pack of cigarettes. They pick one prisoner each from the new arrivals standing in line outside. Then a prisoner named Red bets on Andy because he thinks Andy looks very innocent and comes from a very rich background who has never faced hardship. So he thinks Andy will be the first one to cry tonight. After this, all the prisoners are brought inside the jail in a line and each one is locked inside his cell. After some time, night falls, and then the old prisoners start yelling at the new ones so that one of them gets scared and starts crying. And that is exactly what happens. One of the new prisoners breaks down crying and says that he wants to go home. Just then, the guards arrive and they tell him to stop crying. But when the man doesn't stop crying, the guards pull him out of the cell and beat him so badly that he passes out. On the other side, Red loses the bet he placed on Andy. And Red realizes that Andy is very strong because even after being scared like that, he didn't make a single sound. That's why the next day Red gives a box of cigarettes to his companion because he had lost the bet he placed on Andy. Just then we see Andy, who is sitting alone quietly having breakfast. Then Andy meets Brooks, the oldest prisoner in the jail. Brooks is about to complete nearly 50 years here in this prison. Andy wisely tries to learn from Brooks about all the small and big rules of this jail and about every single prisoner. Then Brooks tells Andy every secret of the prison, and he tells him that if you ever want something brought in from outside the jail, you should go to a prisoner named Red. Hearing this, Andy doesn't wait and goes straight to Red and says that I've heard you can get anything brought inside from outside. Then Red says yes, I can get it, but only things that can't be used to escape from here or to kill someone. Andy tells Red that I need a hammer. The moment he hears the word hammer, Red says, why do you need a hammer? Are you planning to kill someone with it? Then Andy says, no, I'm not going to kill anyone. I don't have any enemies here. Hearing this, Red says you may not have enemies here, but soon some people are going to become your enemies. He points toward a few men and warns Andy that these guys have dirty intentions toward you, so stay away from them. The next day, at Andy's request, Red gets a hammer brought for him, and when he sees the hammer, Red starts laughing because the hammer is very small in size. And deep down, Red thinks that with this hammer, it would take 600 years to dig a tunnel in the prison. After that, through Brooks, Red delivers the hammer to Andy's cell. Days pass like this. And one day when Andy is working in the laundry, those three men who have bad intentions toward Andy grab him. Andy tries to free himself from them, but he couldn't control three men all by himself. So the three of them first beat Andy badly and then do wrong to him. This pattern keeps going on like this. They always catch Andy and then beat him and do wrong to him. In this way, 2 years pass, and an announcement is made that some people are needed for roof repairs. Here, a team of prisoners gets ready for the roof work, which includes Red and Andy as well. They all get busy with their work, and on the roof, the responsibility of watching them is given to a very strict security guard, whose name is Hadley. Hadley is a very strict man who beats prisoners very badly for even the slightest mistake. When all the prisoners are working on the roof, Hadley looks a little troubled and tells his co-workers that his brother recently died and has $30,000 sitting in his account. Now, other than me, my brother has no one else in this world, so I have the right to that money. But the problem is that when I transfer this $30,000 into my account, the government will take almost all of it as tax. While Hadley is talking about this with his co-workers, Andy overhears everything. Andy, who is a very big banker, knew how that money could be withdrawn without paying taxes to the government. After this, without thinking, Andy goes up to Hadley and says to him, do you trust your wife? Hearing this, Hadley gets angry and grabs Andy and takes him to the edge of the roof. But before throwing him down, Andy tells him that if you trust your wife that she won't betray you, then you can easily transfer your brother's money into your wife's account. And that too without paying tax, because the government has a rule that any person can gift up to $60,000 to his wife in his lifetime, and no tax is charged on that money. And Andy also says that if you hire hire a lawyer from outside, he'll charge you a lot of money. But I can do this work for you for free." Then Hadley asks, "What do you want in return?" To this, Andy smiles and says, "I don't want anything. When your work is done, just buy beer for all my friends." And the next day, all the prisoners are sitting on the roof enjoying beer. That means Andy had done Hadley's work. But Andy doesn't drink beer. He sits in a corner happily watching everyone drink beer. Andy's friends are also very happy with him because drinking beer in prison was almost impossible. But because of Andy, their wish was fulfilled. Then time passes like this, and Andy and Red's friendship grows deeper. A few days later, all the prisoners in the jail are shown a movie, and everyone is watching a film starring Rita Hayworth. Then Andy comes up to Red and says, "I want a big poster of Rita Hayworth." Andy asks Red for the poster because in the whole prison, Red was the only one who could get anything brought in from outside. After that, Andy walks outside, but as soon as he comes out, those same three men are standing there who used to do wrong to Andy. They say to Andy, "Come with us." But this time Andy refuses. When Andy refuses, they grab him and try to force themselves on him. But Andy fights back against them. But there are three of them. Because of that, they beat Andy very badly. But today they aren't able to do anything to Andy. Still, they beat Andy so badly that he ends up in the hospital for a month, and the man who beat Andy is put into solitary confinement for a week. A week later, when he returns to his cell, that same officer is there whose $30,000 tax Andy had saved. And someone had told this officer that this man had beaten Andy so badly that he ended up in the hospital for a month. Now here, that officer beats that man so brutally that he becomes permanently paralyzed. A month later, when Andy returns to his cell from the hospital, he finds a big poster of Rita Hayworth in his cell, which is actually a welcome gift from Red. Days pass like this, and one day the prison warden comes to Andy's cell with a security guard and has his cell searched. After the search, when the warden doesn't find anything, his eyes fall on the poster hanging in front. The warden says, "Normally I don't allow posters in cells, but you can keep this in your cell." Actually, the search was just an excuse. That officer had told the warden how Andy had saved his $30,000 in taxes. That's why the warden wanted to meet Andy for his own benefit. Andy has a Bible in his hand which he takes, and carrying the Bible, he walks out of there. But after going just a little distance, he comes back and returning Andy's Bible that he has in his hand, he says, "Salvation lies within this." The next day, the warden calls Andy into his office and says that an intelligent man like you shouldn't be behind prison bars. So the warden makes Andy the assistant of the library. In the library, there is the same old man named Brooks, who has been managing it for many years. Just then, the officer for whom Andy had saved $100 brings another officer to Andy. Actually, he had an issue with his tax return, which Andy fills out in just a few minutes. Because of this, Andy starts becoming talked about throughout the whole prison. As the years pass, Andy's workload keeps increasing. Because of that, Andy needs an assistant, and he makes his best friend Red his assistant. One day in the library, Brooks holds a knife to a prisoner's throat and threatens to kill him for no reason. Actually, the government has pardoned his sentence, but he doesn't want to leave this prison. Today, he has completed a full 50 years in this prison. His whole life has passed inside this prison, and he has completely forgotten what the outside world is like. This prison world is his real world, and he thinks that if he kills someone, his sentence will be extended and he'll be kept in this prison. After Andy explains things to him, Brooks lets go of the man whose neck he was holding the knife to. Now, even though he doesn't want to, when Brooks is released from prison and comes outside, the outside world feels very strange to him. In 50 years, the speed of the outside world has increased a lot. Where earlier you might see one car on the road, now the roads are crowded with cars. After a few days, he starts working at a supermarket, but he doesn't feel comfortable in the outside world at all. He keeps remembering the prison again and again and wants to go back there. That's why sometimes he thinks about committing a crime so that he can go back to this prison. But at this age, Brooks doesn't want to commit any crime. And in this crowded, fast-moving life, Brooks isn't able to survive and he loses his life. Before dying, he writes a letter to his friends in prison, and while reading it, everyone becomes very emotional. At the same time, we are shown the prison where the warden starts a new program. In this program, the prisoners will be taken outside to work so they can learn how money is earned through hard work, and the prisoners also agree to do this work because they all want to breathe the outside air. And in this way, the warden gets work done from these prisoners. But through this project, the warden starts getting many contracts because prison labor is very cheap, and the local construction labor teams outside don't get any work anywhere because the warden gets their work done by his prisoners at half the price. And the warden does the work at half price because the prisoners aren't actual laborers that he has to pay daily wages to. That's why the warden makes the prisoners work for free and starts earning a lot of money. And this money of his is black money. But because Andy is a banker, he turns all of the warden's black money into white. Actually, Andy deposits this money under the name of a man who doesn't even exist in this world, and he transfers all the money into that account so that even if the police find out someday, they'll be searching for a man who was never even born. Now a new prisoner arrives in the jail whose name is Tommy. Tommy is very young, and at this small age he has already been to many prisons. Tommy has a very friendly nature. That's why he quickly becomes friends with many prisoners in the jail. One day at the dining table, Tommy tells everyone that he has been stealing for many years. That's why he has already been to many prisons, and this time too he came to this prison because of theft. While listening to Tommy, Andy tells him that if you keep getting caught again and again after stealing, then it means this work doesn't suit you. So you should stop stealing. Tommy finds Andy's words absolutely right. So Tommy starts asking Red about Andy. Tommy tells Red that Andy is very intelligent and a decent man. Why is he in prison? Red tells him that Andy was a very big banker, but he murdered his wife and her lover. Because of that, he got a life sentence. Hearing this, Tommy falls into thought, as if he remembered something. After that, he calls Andy over. Now in front of Tommy stand Andy and Red. Tommy tells both of them that 4 years ago, I went to a prison. There I met a prisoner, and that prisoner told me that one night he went to a house to rob it. During the robbery, the owner of the house woke up. Afraid of being caught, he killed the owner of the house and his wife. Later he found out that they weren't husband and wife but lovers, and that woman was the wife of a very big banker. Sometime later, when I read the news in the newspaper, I learned that when the police investigated these two murders, they suspected that the banker had killed them both. So the banker was arrested on charges of murdering his wife and his wife's lover. Here we find out that Andy was innocent. After learning all this, Andy goes to the warden and tells him everything. But the warden deliberately doesn't believe him because Andy is the man who turns his black money into white and knows all of the warden's secrets. So if Andy leaves here, the warden won't be able to make more money, and his black money secret might also be exposed. So he tells Andy that this is a false story. I hear stories like this every day. Andy promises the warden that even if I get free, I'll still keep your secret. But the warden doesn't listen to a single thing Andy says. Seeing this makes Andy very angry that I helped this man so much. Yet today, even though I'm innocent, he still won't let me out. So Andy yells at the warden. Then the warden throws Andy into solitary confinement for 1 month, and after that he goes straight to Tommy and asks him if everything you told Andy is true. Tommy says yes, it's absolutely true. After that he asks Tommy, if you're called to court, can you testify to this? Tommy says yes, I'm ready for that. The moment he hears this, the warden signals to the guard above, and the guard shoots Tommy dead. After that, the warden goes to Andy and tells him that Tommy tried to escape, so he was shot. But Andy understands why Tommy was killed, and deep down he thinks the warden is a very vile man. Andy tells the warden that from today on, I will never do your work again. Then the warden says, you will have to do my work, otherwise I'll turn this prison into hell for you. And as he leaves, the warden tells the security guard to keep him in solitary for another month. Solitary confinement was a terrifying place where a prisoner had to stay in pitch darkness for an entire month. Now Andy had already spent 1 month in solitary confinement, but now he would have to spend another month in that same small dark room. Outside, throughout the whole prison, the news spreads that Andy is serving time for a crime he never even committed. All the prisoners inside the jail feel very bad for Andy. Now after spending a full 2 months in solitary, when Andy comes out, Red comes over to him. Andy asks Red, will you ever be able to get out of this prison? Red says yes, but only when I've become very old and my mind has stopped working. Andy says, I'm going to leave here and go to Mexico. In Mexico, there's a very beautiful place by the ocean. They say a man can lose himself there. I'll open a restaurant there. I'll fix up my boat by the shore, and there I'll need a resourceful guy who can bring me supplies from outside. He was actually pointing toward Red. Hearing this, Red says hope is a very dangerous thing. It can drive a man crazy. You need to come back to the real world. Mexico is very far from here. Saying this, Red starts to walk away. But before leaving, Andy says to Red, promise me that if you ever get released from here, you'll do something for me. Red says yes, I definitely will. Then Andy gives Red an address and says, whenever you get out of here, go to that place where there's a beautiful tree in the middle of a big field. Under that very tree is where I proposed to my wife. He tells Red that under that tree, inside a wall, you'll find a black stone, and under it I've hidden a box, and whenever you get released, go there and look under that stone at that box and see what's inside. Saying this, Andy leaves from there and goes straight to the warden. He finishes the warden's work and puts all his documents into a special safe. After putting the documents away, the warden gives Andy his clothes. He tells Andy, "Get my clothes pressed and shine my shoes like a mirror." After that, Andy returns to his cell. Meanwhile, on the other side, Red is very worried tonight because he's afraid Andy might hurt himself. In this way, the night passes and morning comes. As soon as morning arrives, all the prisoners' cell doors open and everyone comes out. But Andy doesn't come out of his cell. In the past 20 years, this was the first time that a prisoner didn't come out of his cell in the morning. Then Red's eyes also turn toward Andy's cell, and his worry keeps growing that maybe Andy harmed himself. Just then, a guard angrily walks toward Andy's cell. But when he reaches there and looks, his eyes are left wide open in shock, because inside the cell there was no one, and Andy had escaped from there. Now we see the warden, who takes out his shoes to put them on. But in that box, instead of his, there are Andy's old shoes. And just then a siren starts blaring throughout the prison, and that siren signals that a prisoner has escaped. The warden rushes to Andy's cell, and there he sees that Andy is not there. After that, he tells the security guard, "Go and bring Red here, because he was always with Andy." Here, Red is also brought in. The warden asks Red, "Where is this Andy?" Red says, "How would I know?" At this, the warden gets very angry. He says, "Was he some ghost who vanished from here overnight?" In anger, the warden picks up stones lying there and starts throwing them at the guards and Red, and he also throws one stone at the poster hanging on the wall. But the stone doesn't hit and fall down. Instead, it goes straight through the poster, and when the warden puts his hand inside it, he sees that Andy had made a huge tunnel there, which leaves everyone shocked because that wall was very strong. Without a machine, making a tunnel in that wall was almost impossible. But Andy made the impossible possible and escaped from there. After that, all the guards go to the place from where Andy had come out. There they find Andy's old clothes and the hammer that Andy had asked Red to get for him 20 years ago. This was the same hammer Andy had been using for the past 20 years to dig a tunnel in his cell wall. For 20 years, Andy did this so carefully that no one even found out. Along with that, whatever dirt came out of the wall, he kept it in his pocket and scattered it around the yard. The last time Andy worked for the warden, he kept all the documents of the warden's black money with himself, and the Bible he had, he cleverly placed it in the warden's safe right in front of him, making it look like it wasn't a Bible but his documents. Also, the clothes the warden had given him to press, Andy first put on the warden's clothes, and then wore his old clothes over them, and the shoes the warden had given him to shine like a mirror. Andy wore those and walked out. At night, as soon as all the lights go off, Andy crawls out through the tunnel he made in his cell. After that, he breaks a sewer pipe and crawls through that narrow sewer pipe and escapes from that prison that no one had ever escaped from before. However, the sewer pipe Andy crawled through to get out was about 2 kilometers long. The next morning, Andy goes to the bank where all of the warden's black money is kept. This money is in the name of a man who doesn't even exist in this world. This whole document scheme was created by Andy himself, and the signature of that account owner in the bank was done by Andy from inside the prison. So Andy has no trouble withdrawing all of the warden's money. Andy has all the documents in that man's name. So Andy goes into the banks and withdraws all the money, and that money is $370,000, which means Andy not only became free but also became rich with money. And here we find out that from the very day Andy entered that prison, he had been planning all of this. The warden had treated Andy very badly in prison, and he had also killed Tommy. So he gives proof of the warden's black money to the media. The next morning, this news gets printed in the newspaper, and when the warden opens the safe and looks, inside it there isn't his documents but a Bible. On the first page of the Bible, Andy had written that you were right, salvation lies within this. And when the warden turns the page, he sees a mark of a hammer there. Actually, Andy had cut the pages of the Bible in the shape of a hammer and made a mold. Inside it, he used to hide his hammer. And 20 years ago, when the warden first went into Andy's cell and took Andy's Bible from his hands and returned it to him, at that time too, the hammer was inside that Bible. Seeing this, the warden gets a huge shock. On the other side, the news of the warden's black money had spread throughout the whole city. So outside the prison, reporters and police were coming to arrest the warden, and before the police could arrest him, the warden shoots himself. After some time passes, Andy's friend Red also gets his sentence pardoned, and he is even given a job by the government. But in the outside world, Red's heart doesn't feel at ease at all, because he had spent 40 years of his life in prison. Red lives in the same room where Brooks used to live, and Red also wants to end his life. But just then, he remembers that he had made a promise to Andy. After that, he sets off in a car for that place, and he goes to that big grassy field where there is a very large tree. There is also a wall of stones. On that wall, there is a black stone, and when he lifts that stone, there is a box underneath it. Inside that box, there is some money and a letter. That letter is from Andy. In that letter, it is written that Andy is waiting for Red at the same place that Andy had told Red about in prison. Further in it, Andy had written that hope is a good thing. After this, Red reaches that place, and when he goes to the seashore, he sees Andy sitting in a boat fixing it. This place, all of this, is Andy's dream that he had shared with Red in prison. And Red had said that hope is not a good thing. After this, the two of them hug each other. And with this, the story comes to an end. If you like this video, then please subscribe to our channel and be sure to like the video.